Loads of people are always saying that Isis is an exceptionally pretty girl. They say things like, "What lovely blonde hair she has, and what wonderful blue eyes, and such a sweet nose, and what a darling little mouth." And Isis likes it when people say such things about her. And there's something else that makes her happy. It's that everyone at school wants to be friends with her. In fact, she's so popular that every girl in her class is simply dying to go to her birthday party. But Isis couldn't invite just anyone to her party, and especially she couldn't invite Katie. You see, Katie was a bit strange and not very pretty. Well, at least Isis thought so. And she didn't like the way she did her hair, and her shoes weren't very nice. And Isis couldn't possibly invite a girl who wasn't pretty to her party, so she didn't. But Katie has a secret that Isis didn't know. Only a very few people, like Wendy and Alyssa, know Katie's secret. But I'll let you in on it. Katie is a witch and can do all sorts of magic spells. She tries not to do them too often, or else everyone will soon know her secret. One day, Isis came to school with invitations for all the girls in her class to come to her party, all except Katie. And Katie felt a bit sad about that, because although she wasn't best friends with Isis, she felt, well, rather left out. It made her feel like there might be something wrong with her. The next day, some of the girls were talking about Isis's party. Samantha said, "I'm not sure what kind of dress to wear, but I think I might go in pink." "Yes," said Trudy. "Pink suits you so well." When Katie walked past, Julia said, "I expect that Isis didn't invite Katie because she's got a nose like a pug." Katie heard this and she spun round. "I do not have a nose like a pug," she said. "And even if I did, Isis has a nose that points upwards, and that means she's a snooty nose." But the girls just laughed at Katie, and they all chanted, "Your nose is flat and your bum is fat." But when Isis heard that Katie had called her a snooty nose, she was cross. In fact, she was really, really, really cross, because she knew that there was a little grain of truth in it. And a true insult hurts more than an untrue one. Her nose did point up, just a bit. But even so, she still thought it was the prettiest nose in the class. When she saw Katie, she said, "How dare you call me a snooty nose? You just said that because I didn't invite you to my party." "Well, I'll tell you, Katie, why I didn't invite you. I didn't want you there because my mum says that your mum is weird and that your whole family is ugly, especially you." "I'm glad that you didn't invite me," said Katie, "because I wouldn't have come anyway. And besides, your nose does point up, and that's because you and your whole family are snooty. Your family is so snooty that they named you after an Egyptian goddess. And if you look at a picture of the real Isis, you'll see that she had a pointy-up nose too." "Isis is a very pretty name," said Isis. "At least it's not a common name like Katie. You're more common than a tin of baked beans. In fact, there's nothing pretty or clever about you. You're not even funny. You're just dumpy, flat-nosed Katie with stringy black hair, bandy legs and wonky teeth. And besides, nobody likes you because there is nothing special about you at all. Not one thing, apart from the fact that you smell. And Katie was so cross that she started to mutter a magic spell to turn Isis into a snail. But then she thought that she had better not, in case she got into trouble. So that night, before she went to sleep, Katie sat up in her bed reading her magic books. She was looking for a very special spell to get her revenge on Isis. And at last, just before her mum came in to kiss her goodnight, she found the perfect spell for the job. In the morning, Isis got out of bed and went to look at her face in the mirror. She was just a bit worried because she thought she might be getting a spot on her nose, and that wouldn't do at all. In fact, she had decided that if her nose got a pimple, she wouldn't go to school until it went away. But when she looked in the mirror, what she saw was not at all what she had been fearing. It was much, much worse. It was her nose. Or rather, it wasn't her nose, because it wasn't there anymore. Isis had no nose. Her face was just flat where her pretty little snooter should have been. She let out a scream, and then another scream, and then another. Her mother came rushing up the stairs, and then she screamed too. When they both stopped screaming, they looked under the pillow and in the folds of the duvet. Then they looked under the bed and in the cupboard, but nowhere could they find her nose. Then her mum wrapped a scarf around her daughter's face and took her to the doctor's. The doctor said not to worry. Isis wouldn't die because she could still breathe through her mouth. But he said it was strange, very strange indeed. He had never seen anything like it. He gave her a bottle of pink medicine just in case it might help. But on balance, he thought it probably wouldn't. And then Isis cried, and she cried, and she cried some more, because she couldn't possibly go to school without her nose, and she would have to cancel her party. And so long as she was noseless, she wouldn't be popular, because nobody would want to know a girl with no nose. In class, the teacher said that Isis had had an accident and wouldn't be coming to school until she was better. When Katie heard this, she knew her spell had worked. But of course, she didn't tell a soul about it. After school, Julia and Annabel went round to Isis's house to see if she was okay. Nobody answered the door, so they went around the back to see if she was playing outside on the lawn. They saw her sitting on a garden chair, and they both saw her face. But of course, what they didn't see was her nose. After that, the news about Isis losing her nose spread fast around the school. Everybody was talking about it. And then some very strange things started to happen. Really strange things indeed. When the art teacher, Miss Jenkins, opened her desk, she found inside it a nose. It was a pretty little nose, but slightly pointed up at the end, just like Isis's. She thought it was a joke nose that somebody had made out of Play-Doh, and that made her very cross. "It really isn't very nice at all," she said. "In fact, whoever did this has an extremely nasty little mind. It's ever so cruel to make fun of somebody who's had an accident." Everyone wondered who had made the joke nose. But in fact, nobody had, because it really was Isis's nose. And when Miss Jenkins wasn't looking, the nose climbed out of her desk, hopped onto her chair, and jumped down onto the floor. You see, it had grown 2 little legs and it could run. Toby spotted it, and he yelled out, "Look, miss! Look! Look! There it goes! The nose is escaping! It's running away! But Miss Jenkins didn't look. She didn't believe him. She just went over to Toby and told him that he was a very naughty little boy and that he was in big trouble. In fact, she was going to ring his mother and tell her just what a mean and horrid thing he had done. Nobody else saw the nose escaping, except for Katy, and she kept quiet. She felt a bit sorry for Toby, but not too much, because she knew that very soon more people would see some strange things. And they did. When Samantha opened her locker, she screamed so loud that the whole school heard her, because Isis's nose had been asleep on top of her fleece, and when she opened the door, it sprang up and jumped out of the locker. And when Annabel looked in the mirror, she saw that her face had two noses, her own and Isis's, and they seemed to be having a conversation with each other. Annabel didn't even scream. She just fainted. When she came round, Isis's nose had scarpered, and none of the teachers believed what she told them. They just said she must have imagined it. And Toby found the runaway nose once again. This time it was taking a nap in his lunchbox. He was so frightened that he would get into even more trouble than before that he didn't tell anyone. He just grabbed the nose and let it loose in the playground, where it ran off, no doubt to make more trouble elsewhere. At the next staff meeting, Mrs. Hepworth, the headmistress, was in one of her flurries. "What on earth are we going to do about all this nose business? The whole school has been traumatised by Isis's terrible accident. All the children are imagining things. It's a mass hysteria." A mass hysteria is when lots of people see the same thing.